What up? Welcome to Homegrown Hustle, where local brilliance takes the center stage. I'm your host, Matt Eickman. Together, we're about to embark on an inspiring journey. Our community thrives on the wisdom of insightful leaders that are right here in our backyard. And we're bringing their expertise to your ears. Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur or simply seeking inspiration, this podcast is your guide. Join us every week in celebrating innovation, guidance, and the power to inspire greatness. Let's explore the stories that shape our local business landscape, and together, let's ignite the spark of excellence.
What's up, hustlers? I'm here with Andrew Seifert. He is an executive sales coach over at Southwest Consulting and a proud member of the Twin Cities Polo Club. That's the first time I've said that on the podcast. So, Andrew, thank you so much for coming out here. Really appreciate your time. I've been looking forward to this one for a while. So before we get into all the sales coaching and stuff like that, let's talk a little bit about you. Why don't you take some time, tell everybody about yourself, give a little backstory.
Well, sounds good. So first off, thanks for having me on. Cool podcast, cool guy. So everyone out there, I've known Matt for years. He's been my guy, take care of my house. Phenomenal job. So if you haven't used him yet, make sure you dial him in. About me, so I got into coaching. It was a natural kind of evolution of all the things I've done. So out of high school, I was in the music business for years, moved into, restaurants like you do, went back to college. I got into sales. And once I got, the first couple of years of sales, I got into being into sales management, which is leadership and coaching. And, back in the cell phone days, selling those, it was really about getting people to move forward. And then we created a new role that helped talk about some of the new technologies out there. So my job was to help sales reps figure out how to do these new technologies versus kind of the old school phone sales. And I became a quote unquote coach. So other people would come to me. Did that for several years, moved to a big sales company you might have heard called Oracle. And they brought us in because Oracle, in an effort to kind of own the market within one platform, decided they were going to hire 1,000 salespeople right out of college with zero sales experience.
Just throw a bunch of people at it.
Well, the story goes, Larry Ellison was having dinner with his son and his friend, and his son's friend was an intern at Google. So at the Oracle table, all this kid talked about how great Google was and how amazing Google was. And rather than being mad about it, Larry went, gosh, there's something to it. So the next day he goes to the office and he gets the board together and goes, how are we going to get this? And he said, we're going to do this. And Seifert, how are we going to get this? And she said, we're going to do this. He goes, you're all wrong. We're going to hire 1,000 kids right out of college. So they did that. And then they realized these kids didn't know how to sell anything. They were passionate about technology and AI and SaaS platforms and connected platforms, but they did not know the first thing about how to bring that message into a cohesive statement to tell a customer story. So they went to bring in consultants. So I came to work in the consultancy organization, and it was fantastic. We had storytelling school. We had tons and tons of training about how to help these young salespeople learn to craft their message and then successfully deliver that to customers. So that was really kind of the beginning of the coaching piece. Along the way, I got into yoga and became a yoga teacher and a meditation teacher.
How'd you get into yoga?
Well, I had done yoga as a kid early on. And one day I was at Lifetime and, I was kind of feeling down. It was a hard time in my life. And I'm sitting on a bench by the pool, my kid's in the pool. And this girl walks up to me. I'm in my 40s. This girl comes up. She's probably 25. Beautiful, white bikini, tan body, big aviator shades. And she goes, Andrew Seifert? I'm like, yeah. And she goes, I'm Chris Seeley. We went to school together. I'm like, what? Went to school together? And she goes, what are you doing here? I said, well, I'm waiting for yoga class. She goes, I'm your yoga teacher. I'm like, what? So I went to this class.
Sounds like a good sales pitch.
It was a great sales pitch. Yeah. I mean, they Lifetime really had it nailed down, I'll tell you. But what occurred for me is, going through a transition life, not feeling great. And I felt better after that 1 hour class, which I almost died from, but that I had in years. And I thought there's something so I kept going, started feeling better, really figuring it out, really liking it. And then they said, you should be a teacher, which they say to everyone I found out, but I had fun doing it. So I became a teacher, taught a couple of the studios, and then an opportunity came up to own a studio. And I did that and I thought, well, this is kind of fun until you had to pay the bills. But after 5 years of really gut struggle, we got it together. And then, of course, the year 2020 came upon us. And well, that was the end of that studio. But it was a great learning experience. And we did a ton of coaching there. We had a yoga teacher training program. So a lot of that stuff is not just learning the poses and the practice, but the whys behind it. Why do you want to be a teacher? Because I think if you're a teacher, one of the things you have to do is you have to give of yourself, right? It's not just, here's the pose, turn right, do this. Here's how to sell this. You have to really see in somebody else that there's something they want to accomplish, and you have the ability to help them get there, whether it's a small piece, little piece. So that's your job as a teacher, and frankly, as a coach as well.
Mm-hmm. So that was fantastic. You nailed it, by the way.
Nailed it.
So there's a couple things there that I'll get back to, but one thing that kind of hopped out as you were kind of just giving your overview is early on, you were kind of brought into coaching. Mm-hmm. What do you think it is that you kind of had from that early age that's allowed you to just do well in that space, and then excel at a really high level at some big organizations?
Yeah. We all have those pivotal stories in our life, right? So if you're lucky, you get to have a couple of them. So I'll share one with you. So back in, 90 sometime, I was in the coffee business, and I owned a company that imported espresso machines from Italy. And, I was the sales guy because I'm happy and shaking hands and making things happen. And one of my clients was a hotel downtown, and it's this great guy, Maurice. And Maurice says, "Andy, you must meet my friend David. He's coming here to open a restaurant." I said, "Okay." So I go meet this guy, and he's a little wild. He's ex-Le Mans driver, had a big accident in France, and he was told he couldn't race anymore, it would kill him. And he showed me the video. He actually had been going down the track on a test track, and the car flipped at 200 miles an hour and rolled and rolled and rolled. And of course, they're in a little cage. All that came out was the cage.
Oh, gosh.
And he says, "I don't remember anything about that day. I remember getting the track in the morning, that's it." But he was in a coma for 3 months. So he's telling me the story, and then, kind of restarting, and he's going to come to America and open a restaurant. So I said, "Great, glad to help you. Here's how much machines cost." "Oh, sounds good. I'll buy a machine from you." So I follow up with him, and we're going to put the deal together, and I go to the restaurant. He goes, "Yeah, I have to tell you, I don't have the money for the machine." I'm like, well, these nice chairs, but you couldn't buy a machine for your restaurant. So fortunately, I've got a lease guy. And so the lease guy says, "Yeah, I'll fund him. It's 28% because it's restaurant leases." And I go to install the machine. My tech's installing it. I say, "David, here's the paper." He goes, "Oh, I don't have the money for the down payment." I'm like, and I thought, you know what? I've worked this guy for 6 months. Worst case scenario, it would be what my commission would be if he doesn't do this, right? And we'll pull the machine out the next day and sell it. So I said, "I'll give you the money." And he goes, "I will call you Tuesday. I'll give you the money." I'm like, "All right, we'll see." So Tuesday I had a call. He goes, "Oh, can you come to the restaurant tonight? I must talk to you." I'm like, this guy doesn't have the money. I know it. So I walk in, we have dinner. He goes, "So," and he hands me an envelope. So, "Here's the money." I'm like, "Oh, thank you." But I also want to know, you're so nice. You helped me since I come here. Would you want to be a partner in the restaurant? Now, if you don't know anything about the restaurant business, someone says you want a partner, you say no. Not no thank you, not no maybe, no. Because it's just, it's not a great partnership business to be in, personally. So anyway, I say no. But then he goes, "I own the building too." I goes, "Well, that's interesting. I'll partner in physical real estate." So anyway, I become a partner, still have other jobs I'm doing, and the restaurant does okay. And then the head chef gets sick and a bunch of stuff happens. So we sell it. And we sell it to the Minneapolis Cafe Group, and everything's good. I taken a bunch of loans to fund the restaurant at that point and signed out a bunch of stuff. So everything's getting paid off. I'm happy. I'm like, whew, got out of that one. David goes back to France, see his family. He's all happy. And okay, life is good. So I'm doing my job, working with a coffee company at this point. And one day I come home and I'm out walking my dog. I lived in Uptown, and there's a note on my door. And it was from the Hennepin County Sheriff saying, "Call this number." So immediately I'm like, "What's this about?" I'm looking around. Well, I take the note, I go upstairs on my landline phone. "Hi, this is Andrew Seifert." "Oh, yes, let's see here. Oh, yeah, looks like we've seized your car for a sheriff's auction." I'm like, "What?" Same time I get in my mail, and all 3 of my bank statements are there, which is kind of odd. Don't never see that every day, but I didn't think about it. Because apparently some of the investors and some of the people that I had loaned money from for the restaurant didn't get paid back. And they had filed a lawsuit, and the new owners of the restaurant, all the paperwork went there. They just threw it in the garbage.
Oh, gosh.
So I am like, what? And so I go through my bank statements. Every bank account was garnished. So here I am now with no car, no money. And it was like, okay, I couldn't believe it happened. And it was at that moment that a friend of mine had given me some Tony Robbins tapes. And I'd heard this stuff before, but I really went, you know what? This is the time to make it or not. Because no one held a gun to my head. I mean, believe me, for a long time, I was all about blaming this person. How could he do that? And how horrible and blah, blah, blah. But end of the day, I made the decision to sign the line, to get the loans, to fund the business. It was up to me to get myself out of it. So I sat down and I started writing out goals. And I mean, they were big goals. They were house remodeled, vacation, new car, all these things. Just wrote about what would happen if I didn't get these, what my life would look like, which wasn't a pretty picture either. And then figured out what I needed to do. So I was selling coffee for a roaster in Duluth called Alecaf Coffee, shameless plug. And we're
going to tag them.
I know, they're great. It's not called City Girl Coffee is one of them. Great coffee. But I looked at it and said, if I want to make, say it was $100,000, here's how much I need to sell in coffee. To do that, I needed to do this many meetings, this many sales. And I just went backwards in the math, which is something we teach people in coaching, how to come up with your numbers. And I got down to it. And I remember there were days that I sat in my house in Uptown and just dialed, just hit the phone and dialed.
Dig in, yeah.
Talked to people, and then started doing some of the community outreach like you guys do. Got involved in groups and boards. And within 2 years, just 2 years, that entire thing was paid back. I had the new car. I had the remodel almost done in my house because I had a old Queen Anne Victorian on Bryant Avenue. And so we took the attic, which was open, and then reframed it to be a second, third floor executive suite. All that was done. And I'm like, holy buckets, I can't believe this. But it was all because I sat down, I wrote down what I wanted. And I was dedicated about doing the steps to get it. A lot of people write down goals. I'm going to do New Year's Day, right? Who doesn't do it? I'm going to write this goal down. How are you going to do it? No idea. I'm going to look on December 31st and see if I got there or not. Not a great plan.
Why do you think people don't go through that process of like reverse engineering it and working backwards?
Pain. It is painful to do that. Two things have to happen to get there. Number one, a good friend of mine told me this once. He goes, people change under one or two conditions. Either they are brought to their knees by circumstances, or they come to their knees voluntarily, right? They decide I need to change something. And usually it's a latter, which is a painful process. This guy had his young son die in a diving accident, and it made him change everything. So for me, that was a pretty painful process to go from doing pretty well. And I was, late 20s, kind of carefree, having a great uptown life, but to have everything taken away was just like, So most people don't do it, frankly, because it's painful. It's painful to look in the mirror and say, you are the cause of your problems, nobody else.
So as you're telling that story, it sounded almost as if you got to that realization really quickly. Was that just for the sake of the story, or was there more?
There's more to it. I mean, it was the realization occurred. So I was listening to these Tony Robbins tapes. So shout out Tony Robbins. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
He talks about that, like making changes and doing things. And there was one particular thing. I remember I was driving to Duluth to the coffee company and listening to the one about setting your goals, and not so much about what would happen if you didn't do it. What would your life look like if you don't achieve what you think you can do? Because we don't stay static. We're either moving forward or moving backwards all the time. And if you don't keep moving forward, you are sliding backwards. And eventually that's going to be at a bottom somewhere. So what's that bottom look like? And so I had a vision of that. And, I remember driving over the hill in Duluth and like having tears in my eyes because it was like such a horrible, I don't live like that. No one should live like that. But yet if I did not take responsibility for my life and do things for me, that was inevitably what would happen.
So you found success yourself and you saw that there's a need there. And then naturally you're just good at seeing where people have that need and helping them resolve it, or
I think, because
you have a very this is not the word I want, but like a zen about you.
It's a good word. I'll go with that word because it is. I mean, I've done meditation training and yoga training, right? So part of meditation training is realizing that, and this is part of life training, right? I'm a meditator to this, but things happen, right? We can control things and we cannot control things. When we grasp onto things and try to control an outcome of something, that's when we have problems, right? So a couple of years into yoga training and practicing, someone cut me off on the freeway. And I used to drive, I was a fast driver, get in there and, had a nice car and zoom it around. And someone's in front of me, I went to honk the horn and the horn didn't work. My kid's in the back. She goes, well, how long does the horn not work? Like, I haven't honked the horn like in a year, because people still drive, well, probably worse than ever. But, I can honk the horn and then I'm engaged. And then they'll honk the horn. I'm like, oh, you honked your horn, and next thing you know, I'm all amped up and I'm not making good decisions. Instead I let it go. That guy's having a bad day. In later years, I've come to this realization that, everyone's struggling, so I can either be part of their struggle by engaging them and going, how dare you, or be part of the process by letting them be, and if I look at it like that, it's hard to get mad at people, that they have good. Whatever their struggle is, it's not mine to fix, but it's certainly not mine to antagonize either.
Yeah. So you just don't even give them any control over where you're at.
That's the theoretical practice. So
yeah,
I do try to meditate every day to do that, but there's plenty of times when things still get my go, but then I realize much faster. Relationships are a great field to practice it in, because you'll see it. And you're like,
So we've known each other for probably like going on 10 plus years now. But when I met you, I remember you telling me you were doing something with yoga and horses. Yeah. And you were burned into my mind at that point, because that's such a unique combination. So that type of Zen that you've got from yoga, that probably helps with horses. I don't have a lot of horse experience. Not a big horse guy.
Well, you're going to be.
Yeah. You're bringing me into the space. So
how's that all come together?
Say that again.
How's that all come together?
Do you see overlap between like your work with horses, and maybe talk a little bit about what you were doing there first, and then I'll connect the dots.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up raising horses out in Chaska. Our parents had a saddlebred farm, and I grew up doing that. High school time, my parents sold everything. I think one of the big trainers to my dad, who was a doctor in Excelsior, he says, Doc, you can be a horse trainer or you can be a doctor, but you can't be both. And so he became a doctor, and we started getting rid of horses. I ran into my old trainer as a kid at the state fair. It's like probably 20 years ago. And he said my name. I'm like, oh, geez, because it's a very unique name and very unique the way he said it. I'm like, oh my God. But at the same time, I was just starting my yoga teacher training. So the gentleman who owned the barn, his daughter, who is my peer, runs it now. And I went to go see him. My kid, who was 3 or 4th time, looked up and saw these horses and just eyes went wild. And they said these words, just come on down to the barn. And I'm like, oh. So I went down to the barn, and I tell you, it was like coming home. There's smell of warm horses and hay. It's just, there's nothing like it. Smell is one of those senses that really it's deep in us. So it brought me home like that. So my kids started taking ride lessons, fell in love with it. And then we'd go down in the morning, the kids would ride, parents would chat. And one of the moms was like, well, you're teaching yoga. Why don't you teach us how to do yoga? I thought, well, okay, I can practice teaching yoga. So we would do yoga classes in the barn while the kids rode in the main lounge. And we had parents, but also adult riders. And we started seeing adult riders have a better connection with their horses when they rode than before. So a little thing on horses is horses are very experiential. So they operate as a prey animal in the state of they notice every single thing around them all the time. Because if they don't, they're going to be a dead prey animal. So that's their instinct. But they're also 1,200 pounds and can go 35 miles an hour. So to work with an animal like that has that power and go that fast, and they're letting you ride them, it's a lot of give from the horse. They're
putting up with a lot.
They're putting up with a lot to let you do that. So when we started seeing riders do the yoga class, we do a little meditation afterwards. If you've been in yoga class, a little shavasana, we'd see these riders be more relaxed than the horses. We'd see the horses be more relaxed than the rider. And then these are competitive riders. So in competition, we'd coach them through the same things, like take some breaths, feel your body, drop that shoulder, do these things before you get in the horse, so that when you go into the show ring, you're dialed into the team, and we would watch riders that were a little off balance, maybe shoulders down, maybe hips sore, and you'd watch the horse compensate for that rider. Well, they can't really do their job if they're compensating for you. It's like, if I'm going to pick you up and carry you around, I can't really run as fast as I could because you're flopping around up there, right? You're probably trying to get off. You're like, why'd you pick me up, Andrew?
So I know we've got some people that they're in competitive horse riding. So if they're listening right now and they're like, oh my gosh, I want to know about that. Are there like 2 or 3 pieces of advice that you could give them that might help them just right where they're at right now?
I was telling a story earlier, but before you get on your horse, actually, I tell us, before you go to the barn, on your way to the barn, when you get there, last 5 minutes, turn the music off. No music, no phone calls. Get present. Start to breathe and feel your body. Most of us never feel our bodies. Most of us are stuck up in our heads and we breathe real shallow, from here to here. So take full breaths in, full breaths out. Start to feel yourself. When you breathe in deeply, you're massaging, your diaphragm goes up and down in that big vagus nerve. And so you're making yourself calmer mechanically. But when you go to your horse, take a moment to check in that calm state. Check in, touch the horse, talk to the horse, use your voice a lot. There's a lot of big horse trainers that talk about that, using your voice to convey the intention of the horse. Your rides will become different overnight. So
that's great. Makes me want to get a horse.
Well,
you are good at sales.
I know a guy.
So you pretty much grew up working with horses. Was that kind of zenning out with the horses? Was it happening before or just
I think it happened before. And there was, as a kid, if all you do is, one thing you grew up, you don't any different. I remember my friends telling me they go on vacation. I'm like, who takes care of your horses? I'm like, we don't have horses. Like, what do you mean you don't have horses? Doesn't everyone have horses? Doesn't everyone have to do chores after school? What's this free life you hear about? So as a kid, we just did it. But I think growing up with it, being in the country, being around horses, I mean, we're little kids. We're leading these big horses, from pastures to barns or whatever. And there was no sense of this is dangerous or what if, that many adults get today. We just did it. Like, I think if you talk to anybody, like a kid who learned to skate at 2 years old or ski at 2 years old doesn't worry about skiing and getting hurt because they've done it all their life. To them, it's natural. So to me, it felt very natural. We did have a neighbor who was kind of a big wheel in the horse business. And I remember being in high school and, having girls, friends, and, like girls were being mean because, how girls are. And I remember one day talking to one of my horses about this, like, I can't believe that Kim's doing this. And I just sat there and that horse just looked at me. And I tell you, you felt heard. You felt like really like listened to and heard. Now, do they know exactly what you're saying? No, but I think they sense what you're thinking. A lot of communicators will tell you a horse sees in pictures. So if you're on a picture, they dial into that. But then we had this neighbor who was kind of a big wheel in the Western world. And he came in one day and he was watching us work our horse. And he goes, as a kid, he goes, Andy, got to always talk to the horse. Always talk to the horse. The horse knows your voice. Doesn't know the words, but the voice you have, and you use these words, the vibration in your voice, which is odd for like a Marlboro man kind of guy, Western guy to say, but he goes, that vibration is how the horse will know you're there for him. So to me, that's that whole thing of checking in and doing that. But that was just how I kind of grew up.
And that sounds like some of the stuff that I talk to my sales guys about when we're talking about communicating with our customers. So is there like natural overlap there? Do you ever like pull from your
100%
with stories during your coaching?
Yeah. So, we're story-based culture, right? So we're story people. So everything's stories. But when I work with sales teams, a lot of times we'll talk to sales teams about phone calls, right? So everyone's got to make cold calls this day. How many people like it? Nobody. If you tell me someone says, I love making cold calls, I don't think you do.
They're gaslighting themselves into
that. So I said, the first thing is realize you don't like to do this, and that's okay. But why are you making the call? What is it that you want to convey? There's a message. It's a story about what you do. In your case, the story is about this great service you have, about, my girlfriend freaking out like big time because there's mice in the house, and Matt comes to the rescue and comes through and fixes all these things up. And I had cats that would like, look at that mouse go, and I thought, my cats will be fine. Girlfriend's like, no, the cat's not doing it. But, you get a story about how you're going to, I didn't care about the mice so much. I wanted peace at home.
Yeah.
And you brought peace to the house. So that was the story. So, when I talk to salespeople, I say, why is it you're doing it? We work on the salesperson so they come up with their reason to do what they're doing. But then we help them craft a story or script or whatever you want to call it to tell people so they can get enrolled. If someone says, hey, buy my service for X a month, it's cheaper than this person's for Y a month, maybe. But if you can tell a story about, listen, as a friend of mine, his girlfriend called and just screamed out because there's mics in the house. And he called me up and I said, brother, I know I can help you fix your relationship. Now, that's the guy I want to do business with.
That's good. So within sales, let's dive into the sales stuff because I love that. So I've been having a lot of conversations recently with other home-based services that are growing their company, and they're to the point where they're building scripting because now it's not just them and maybe one or two other people that have been there for a while answering the phones. Now they're building out a sales team. Where do most sales scripts go wrong?
I think most sales scripts go wrong in that they're too tight, right? They say, read this word for word. Hi, I'm with so-and-so. We offer this. Would you like to do this? Yes or no? Oh, don't say yes. They don't allow for the people to do it. And that comes from practice. At Southwestern, we help people figure those scripts out. We use a lot of scripts in what we do. So when I went through, onboarding there, we have a script to talk about phone approach, and I used it on you and we booked a meeting. Did that sound scripted when we talked?
No, I really liked I liked how you handled it. Yeah. I saw it because I kind of come from that world.
Yeah. You see it, you know it, but it's like, oh, but part of that is practice. So the number one thing I tell salespeople is if you're going to do scripts, and I think we should all do scripts because it's too easy to go off track. I've done it before where someone says something like, and then I'm just reaching for stuff.
Just making stuff up.
Yeah, exactly. The scratch I'm to 3,000. But when you have a script, you've looked at it and you built your message from beginning to end, so there's a clear creative sales environment. Are you open to hearing about this? There's a clear value proposition. Here's what I do and here's why it's unique. There's a referenceable story of some kind. Funny story, my friend Andrew, his girlfriend had mics on, blah, 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 blah. So that's something people can relate to. It lets people kind of relax, right? They don't feel on guard. Because anytime I pick up the phone, it's like, hi, I'm here to sell you something. Your guard goes way up. So, but when you have a script and you read it through and it has those pieces to it and then clear call to action, and out at the end, hey, Matt, something that works for you. We'd love to have you, come in and talk about this. If it's done great, just do a 5-minute phone call, see if that works out. If it doesn't work out, that's cool. But let's book that phone call. Does that sound fair? Tuesday. So it's, you make it easy for them to say yes to all along the way. But again, the practice is just key because if you don't take time to practice it, and again, I recommend you do it live on a camera. We use Vidyard's a good one to do that with. There's a couple others, but write your script out, say it, watch yourself do it, and then listen to it. If you're courageous,
people probably hate that. Huh?
People hate that. You know who else I said? I hate that. It's not fun to do these things because we're our own worst critic all the time. And so when you see the flaws in our inevitable pitch in ourselves, we go, "Oh man, I can't believe I wore that. I can't believe I said that. Oh, what was I thinking?" But that's when I go back to your salesperson's why. Why are they doing this? What is the reason that they are working in this business, selling this product? What message do they have? If you can put the why first, then the ugly bumps and blemishes, you don't worry about so much.
That's really good. So I'm going to tangent over to another it's kind of close. So within those phone calls, especially follow-ups, I hear a lot of people talking about we're just competing for time. We're trying to get more time. And I see that side of it. The more time you have with the customer, the better opportunity it is to build value and understand their decision-making process. What's your take on time when you're really in that prospecting, trying to get somebody into the pipeline?
For me, again, it goes back to that story thing. So time is, and you probably the first phone call is pretty brief, right? Because we're talking, me, but you don't really know what I'm pitching. So my only goal is to get you to the next step at that point. Once we're sitting down, then we can have a conversation. We can take the time and I can really start to understand you. But the big piece of time is letting people talk, listening. So many people, they get a script and they just wail through it. And the customer might have had 3 questions, but you didn't get a chance to hear it because you had to get to your next script. So an intro script might look like the one I use, hey, Matt, it's Andrew, listen, I'm doing something new. I think it's really of interest to you. I'd love to book a little time with you. Can we talk next week, Tuesday or Thursday? Yes or no? And if I'm lucky, Matt says, sounds good. What do you do? I said, let me send you a little follow-up email so you know what we're talking about. But now I've got the appointment booked. When we sit down, Now a little brief thing about what I do, why I'm doing it, because people want to know whys more than what's. There's a great book that Simon Sinek, the
Start with why.
Start with why. So I'd let you do that. And then I listen. Tell me what you're doing. And then you tell me all the cool stuff you're doing. Now we're having a conversation because people like to talk about themselves, like to talk about what they're doing. So you give that space for the individual to tell you what they're doing, why they're doing it. And then in the back of your mind, okay, how can I help enable that process? Oh, I know. My coaching program might help this aspect, or you know what? I can't do it, but I know somebody in my network that can help you. So doing those things helps take that time you have with the customer that's really limited and make it more valuable. And at the end of the transaction, hopefully that person goes, I want to do something else with that person. I want to do another business cycle with them, whether it's this podcast or whether it's engaging our coaching service or whether it's referring me somebody. If you don't feel heard though, you're like, oh, it's not a fun experience. The next time the phone rings, I'm going to go, beep.
So really at first it's kind of just getting to that next step.
Yeah.
So what about if there's already like some type of relationship that's there and they already maybe have even been pitched it? How do you get like re-engagement there with some outbound communication?
Well,
I know a lot of Minnesotans just ignore shit. Like we don't say no, we just ignore it.
Yeah, 100%. Well, it's not just Minnesotans. Everyone does that. It's pretty common. We use a Salesforce, a CRM, so I can look through the notes of all the calls and excuse me, I'm a CRM junkie, so I love seeing this, but I can go through and like, look at all the calls that were made and, nobody out there. So if it's somebody that is not wanting to engage with me, I'll ask them straight up. I said, hey, Matt, Andrew with Southwestern Consulting. Listen, I've tried to reach you a couple times here. Tell you what, either, you're really busy or this isn't value to you, but either way, let me know. I'm going to send you one last email. And then, if I don't hear from you, just you reach out to me whenever you're ready. And this is hard for salespeople because let's face it, every time we get a quasi deal, like we hear about a lead, like
we don't want to
this guy's going to buy from me. He's doing great. I talked to someone a few weeks ago and he's, a mortgage guy. He's got 100-person team. And I'm thinking, there's 100 people going to be coaching by the end of the week. Well, he hasn't agreed to meet with me yet, but those are salespeople happy ears. So one of the best things you can do to preserve your time and make sure you can get your message and vision to the right people is stop calling people who want to talk to you. I tell people, listen, I want to do business with people who want to do business with me. I recently purchased a car and, I talked to the dealer manager, a couple of them, and I said, here's what I do. We do coaching. Auto dealerships are a big area for us. We have a lot of people in coaching. Here's the results they see and stuff. You don't have to agree to coaching with me. But what I do want you to agree with is to have a meeting with me and talk about one of the free workshops we offer to your sales teams. If you do that, I will go through and look at a car cycle with you. A couple of people said, nope. A couple of people said, I'm not doing that. A couple of people said, didn't call me back at all. And then the Lexus dealership in Wayzata said, yeah, we're totally open. That sounds great. I bought a car from them. So, but
are they good at selling Lexuses too? Or?
Well, they are good at selling Lexuses.
Are they better now that they worked with you?
We haven't started yet. So I just bought the car last week. So 2 weeks ago. So
there's another plug there for Lexus. Exactly. We didn't talk about that one. Yeah. But so what about like follow-up process? Like for us, it's a really high sense of urgency. People call us and they know they should have called us maybe like a week ago. So it's like, get this done, get this done. So we talk a lot about building value through showing that sense of urgency. Like it's important for them. We got to show them it's important for us. So there's a lot of touches early on so we can ensure we get that communication. So in a situation like that, where it's kind of hurry up and get out here and get the service taken care of, how do you coach to that? Is the best... I think I know the answer, but is the best way to sell that like in that first call and like really knowing what you're going to say, how you're going to handle it? Or does that follow-up process sometimes?
Every business is a little different. So I would say you have to look at how you guys operate and what the urgency is for you. Now, again, because I work with you, I could see what it is. And when your people call, it's like, hey, I'm just like, yep, sign me up. Mosquito control. Yep. I want to get done. Pass. Yep. Come on by. But if someone was pitching me that and I didn't have a problem, you'd first have to get me to understand there's a problem. And that's where stories come in. Stories are so powerful. So you might say, hey, Andrew, it's Matt. We're at Pest Control. We wanted to make sure that we're talking to you. I know you had reached out or whatever the reference was, or John told me to call you, whoever it was. You make that connection and then say, listen, the reason I'm calling you now is that a lot of our customers are wait. And when they wait, they have these problems. In fact, John, your neighbor 3 doors down, he waited and, he's happy to tell you the story. You probably know, like he had, whatever it was. He had mice in the house and his girlfriend freaked out or whatever the case was. Had we been able to get there before that transition weather happened, he'd never have a problem. So how'd you like to never have a problem? So good. Stories again are powerful, but it's and that's where it comes down to. Salespeople have to always practice, right? You have to have good referential stories. If you don't have them, you've got to, pull from other people's stories. Yeah. So it didn't happen to me, but one of my coworkers had somebody who did this. People want to hear that. If they just hear, listen, if you don't do this by now, you're going to have problems in May. Oh, okay, whatever. I'll talk to you in May. But if it's something that's compelling, someone they know, that they can feel with, and emotion. I was with a coaching call with one of my clients yesterday, and his thing was, I got to bring the pain. I said, yeah, you have to find the pain in what they're having because otherwise they'll never do anything. And, in my coaching world, it's similar because people don't want to change until it's tough. Like my previous story, I was happy to only do it. I could have done better. Once that pain came, I got really motivated to do better. So your job as a salesperson is to find out that pain and press on it. And they're going to do one or two things. They're going to go, okay, I need to fix this. Or they're going to that was horrible. Don't ever call me again. And if they say it was horrible, don't ever call me again, they were never going to do business with you to begin with. And it's okay. Wish them well.
And that is okay. Not having somebody not do business with you, like that. It's important, especially as a growing business, to be able to get over that. Because if you start closing deals that aren't good, now you have a service issue on the back end because there's no alignment there.
100%. We tell people that, and when we pitch the coaching thing, so listen, our program is a little different and not everyone's a fit for our program, and that's okay. And our program may not be a fit for you personally. You personally may not be a good fit for this because of what you're doing. But if you are, and we say there's the 3 C's, are you coachable? Can you listen to stuff? Really make it done? Are you committed? Because we're a year program minimum to start out with this, and are you ready to change? And if you can say yes, those 3 things, then we're a good fit for you. And I would say, that'd be an easy script to work on with you guys. What are the 3 things? Like, we have a customer, we're not the service for everybody because we do we're holistic. We don't just come in and fix one problem. You have a myriad of offerings. And said, our best customers take advantage of all these, not because we're trying to get money from you, because when the mosquito guy's out there, he can look and say, oh, by the way, I saw a pest trap. He can tell that guy. And when the other person's out there, they can see what's going on. So as a organization, all of your parts of your business are talking to each other for the benefit of the homeowner or that customer. So that's a unique value proposition that you guys offer.
It is. And our team's really good at talking about that. So I've been working with a couple companies on recruiting within the sales space. And the more conversations I've had and the experiences I've had, there's a few different spots people get put into. It's my process works. Just do what I say. It's I need to find the right personality profile, or we're going to coach them through it. And it's really committed to the people part of the relationship. So when it comes down to building out a sales team or recruiting the sales team before they're even there and we're in the coaching, how do you know if you're hiring the right person?
Yeah. Good question. Salespeople, if you're a salesperson, you're a good salesperson, you're motivated by goals. First question I would ask is, what are your goals for 2025? And then the next question is, are they written down somewhere? Third question is, can you show them to me?
That's really simple. So you're saying just at its core, those questions can...
Well, that's going to tell you about the kind of person, right? So the kind of person that writes down their goals every year, you've seen all the studies, right? The people that, I can't remember, it was a Harvard study, but they took a group of people that had been through this business program. So it's called 100 people. And one of the things is to write down your goals. And I think maybe 10% wrote down their goals. And at the end of 10 years, they went back and looked at what those people did. And the 10% of the people out-earned the other 90%. Right. And they said there's a power. So when we have a goal, we start to visualize what that's going to look like when we get there. Visualization is powerful. So if I'm hiring a salesperson, I want to know they can set a goal, because guess what? Your quota is a goal. And if you have already established the fact that you can set goals, and part of setting goals is having them written down and reviewed.
You're halfway there.
Yeah. I used to.
That's so simple. What a hack that is.
Well, years ago, I used to work with OpenU back when it was for the Learning
Not
Annex.
familiar.
So the U of M Learning Annex.
Oh, okay.
We had class so we had one how to open a coffee bar. And, we told people that, the number one thing you can do is start to write down what it's going to look like. And, went through all the process doing that and how to write a business plan. And the majority of people that open a business, you have a business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have a business plan. Because of the nature of your business, what you do, you're revising your business plan all the time. Most people do.
Moving target.
They take the business plan, they go to get funding, and they put it in a drawer. And that's the last they look at it until they go out of business. So
we're not doing that anytime soon.
Yeah, well, of course not. But having a salesperson who understands what goals are, how to act them, those are the people on your team, because those are the ones that already get it. And there's personality profiles. There's a bunch, you can do disc profiles. I mean, all those things are great. But the second thing is, I know you may have a sales methodology you're using ours. End of story. It's whatever you decide to do for methodology, that's what everybody does. Because you end up with the Lone Ranger. And
why is that important?
Well, I've always said as a sales manager, I would rather have a team of B players that were all on the same page than the occasional A player. Because the A player is in it for himself. It's not for the company. And nothing wrong with A players. I mean, God bless you. You drive a lot of business. You're awesome. We all know him. We all see him. But the guy that is just in it for himself and not for the company, not for the mission, they might make a sketchier deal that's going to come back to bite the ownership. They're not the ones that are going to support the younger people coming in, the C player that just came in out of college that needs some guidance. The other people that are believing in the mission of your company and believe in what they do, they're the ones that are going to turn to and get help and offer help to those people that are working along. And that's how you build a good culture.
Yeah.
One of those I see is
that's like what it's all about.
Yeah.
Especially salespeople can get pretty competitive. So sometimes you got to make sure everybody is getting along, because when you eat what you kill, if you're that guy that's going and eating what somebody else killed or started killing and you finish it, well, now you got this whole other dynamic. Yeah. So that playbook allows for, the way I look at it, when everybody's doing the same thing, now if we identify a need for a change somewhere, we can change it and it impact at scale instead of a lot of one-on-one coaching to get this person to use this process well and that person run it that way to all drive to the same goal. So it simplifies things. And within business, when you have that, now you can go to scale when it's all rigmarole. Now you're just throwing crap at the wall. And
somebody's got to make great. Don't get me wrong, an A player may have bring in a ton of great deals, but they're all, they're become harder to manage. When you have somebody following a system, you know what it is. So if I'm out for a week, you can take over because you know the system, you know where I am, you know where the notes are, you can follow it up easily. And we're not worried about, it's in a note file somewhere in my card. I remember the guy, only I know it. So is there you said you work with people for a year, organizations for a year. What do you how do you break that down? What do they come out different? What's different on the back end? The biggest thing that I think personally for me in coaching, it's accountability, right? Did you ever have an early class in college? Like an 8 o'clock class?
Yeah, it was terrible.
Yeah. Did you have a buddy that you went with?
I probably would have showed up on time more if I did.
Yeah, I did. I remember taking trig class and it was 8 o'clock, 5 days a week. And, I didn't want to do that, especially working nights in a restaurant. But yet, 7:50, bang on my door, come on, let's go. It helped me get there. A gym buddy, or running buddy, all those things that give accountability. So when we don't want to do it, there's someone else that helps us do it.
That support's really, really powerful, whether in that one-on-one or group setting. If there isn't the support, it's hard for anything to really get built and go anywhere. Yeah. So from an accountability standpoint, so when you start with a coaching client, we have a huge library of content that we'll bring them through. Concepts like time management, vision, how to set your goals, leadership versus management, how to break down your goals into actionable numbers. And so we'll give somebody homework. And in the beginning, I can look in the system and say, if you're my client and we have a coaching call at 2:00 today,
I get up in the morning, I look through my coaching roster for the day and say, okay, I've got 3 people on. Let me look, is their homework turned in? Have they done it? And usually it was done the night before. Now, as they progress in coaching, they start to do it more and more often because they're starting to see the value. But just in the beginning, knowing that they've got to have a conversation with me, and one of the things we're going to talk about is what they didn't do. Oh, they're going to do it.
So are you acting as, like, you're actually going in and looking at the numbers within the systems that you're working with? It's not just you show up to the calls, talk.
So we actually have this cool proprietary system. It's, one of the things I love about Salesforce is that you can do so many things with it. So we have this thing called critical success factors, which is really just what are the activities you need to do to make it? So it might be, every industry is different. It might be calls, might be meetings, might be B&I meetings, might be, what
are the inputs?
Yeah. What are the inputs? And so we create that for the customer. And I say, what are your inputs? And we give them, I set it up and I send you a link, and then you input your numbers whenever you want during the week. You can do it every day, every week, whatever it is. But then we can review them and we can then start to track. As I said, I've heard on this podcast before, what gets measured matters. That's what changes. If you can't measure it, you can't ever change anything. So we help you put things down so that you and I can look at a piece of paper or a screen and go, well, you said you're doing 27, you did 13. So let's talk about that. What was 13 about? And then you have to have a conversation yourself about, well, why do 13? And it can be an excuse. And if it's an excuse, I might call you out and said, did you really not have time? And,
or is that just things?
Or just things.
So what type of advice do you have for having those conversations for people who have a team under them and somebody's not cutting the mustard? Like, how do you have a conversation that maybe isn't going to make them feel the best, but they need it and have it turn out positive? I
go back to that pain thing. So if I've got a sales rep that's not performing, right? And I bring you and say, Matt, we're going through numbers and, you're just not making it. The first thing I do is I want to establish the fact that we're on the same team. Matt, I'm your boss, your manager, but I'm in your team. So I'm here to support you. My job is to help you do better, right? So let's talk about how we can do that. And then we talk about the facts. So here are the facts is that you have to make whatever the numbers are, 20 calls or whatever quota. And it looks like the last 3 months, you've been short of that. So I know that that's generally about activity. So let's talk about the activity that leads to that number. And then you say what it is. One of the really cool tools we offer, and it's you see it everywhere, but it's a time log. And I would say to that person, we're going to do this time log. And so this is an Excel sheet. It breaks the day down into half-hour segments. And I want you to be really honest with yourself. Every half hour, put down what you're doing. If you're on Facebook, put it down, right? If you were on TikTok, put it down. If you were working out, put it down. If you're
it's a whatever it is, put it down to do that.
Because if you do that, I promise you, Matt, that you will start to see where you can do better. If you don't want to do it, you're never going to do well. And this may not be the role for you. But if you want this to be your role, and if you have goals that are driving you towards that, then I want to help you.
Do you actually end up firing people ever, or you're so good at coaching everyone and just gets better?
I'm the best ever. No. Yeah. I mean, there are people that said they don't want to do it. I had a call with a guy a couple weeks ago. He's missed a couple of calls. And I just said, listen, Dan, I mean, you told me these things were important to you. And this is why. And yet we continue to have these problems with you meeting your goals. Is this really what you want to do? The biggest thing you can do as a boss or as a coach or as a manager is shut up after you make a statement and let that person sit with it. Because the first thing is they want to respond right away. Oh my gosh, I got to respond right away so I don't make me mad. But if you can just sit there quietly and say, well, Matt, tell me more about, why you think that is. And don't go, is it this? Is it this? Is this?
Yeah, let them fill the
sit back, and because they then have to process themselves. And when they do that, they're going to make some decisions. They're going to start looking inside. And, really, like I said in the beginning, we're either growing or we're going backwards. And your job is to help your people grow, right? So you're doing them a huge favor by dialing that pain up a little bit so that they do have an opportunity to look inside and grow. So that's what a job of a leader is.
You're really doing your job by having that conversation.
100%.
Because now you give them that space to improve.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. No one looks for those conversations. I don't like having those conversations. I'm like, ooh, great, I get to have this. But I look at my mission. Why am I doing this? I believe I have the power to help people get from where they are to where they want to go. And that's my job. Every day, that's what gets me up. That's what gets me out on a cold day or when I don't want to make calls, where it is. I know that's my mission. And so for me, if having a hard conversation is part of that and I can help someone get past something, maybe it's not with me, maybe it's somebody else, but they can move forward, then I've done my mission. So
that's awesome. I know we're kind of getting to time here. Got a couple things before we get off. I feel like we could talk forever about sales. So I might be asking you to come back on here because I think it's really powerful for our community. So I'm going to ask one last question, and then I'm going to let you ask me any question that you want. So how do you define hustle for business, or maybe just for sales? How do you define hustle?
I think hustle and grit go together. And that is that, what can I do that's a little bit different to get the word out to what I'm doing? So it doesn't stop. I mean, everybody who knows me, if you're going out to dinner with me or meeting somewhere, I'm going to tell you what I do. Not in a way like, stop everything, let me tell you what I do. But, I'm going to ask about what you do and tell you what I do. And then the big thing is, from a hustle standpoint, man, always know your next step. Never leave a meeting, a phone call, an event without something saying, hey, I will talk to you later, or I will do this, and then do it. That's really good. Now you can ask me whatever you want. All right. So your business is crushing it. Tell me about what started Homegrown Hustle. I love the podcast, love the guests.
It's a great question. So Homegrown Hustle really started as a way to give back to the community that helped our company and myself kind of get to where Abracadabra was at. I mean, when I first got into business, I had real short dreads. I was walking around looking like Sideshow Bob. And it was people like you that really helped me learn by giving me the space and the opportunity to level myself up and just giving me the time of day at times. So as we've had the success that we have and built the team, I really just wanted to give that space and the learning opportunities to as many people as possible, and give opportunities for the guys that helped me, the people that supported us along the way, to talk about their businesses. We've become pretty good at the whole marketing side of things. And I like to let people be in the spotlight, and then also just inspire learning within the local business community. That's so powerful. And as you were saying, the stories allow people to learn and really make those changes. So that type of format. And I love talking about business. I can do that all day. So my wife knows I'm doing that not at home. Yeah. So it's for Monica. That's why. Thank you so much for coming on here.
Yeah, dude, pleasure. So
if there's a manager or entrepreneur out there that wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to reach out?
So my email, which is, I'm sure we'll have it in the show notes here, but Seifert@southwesternconsulting.com is the easiest way to reach me, or just dial me up, 612-388-6184.
Any last words before we sign off?
No, not really. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. It's awesome. Shameless plug for the polo stuff. You should all be involved in nonprofit activities to help your community. So that's what we do.
Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So Sunday, August 3rd, the Twin City Polo Classic. It is a benefit to raise money for an equine rescue called This Old Horse. I've been on the board for the last 5 years. It is one of the best fun Sundays you'll ever have. You're going to be there.
We'll be there.
You're going to be there. It'll be a blast. But it's a really fun equine event that you get to see polo live. You get to see other horse events. We have a classic car show, free champagne during halftime. I mean, who can't beat that? So rain or shine.
We have orange juice too.
We have everything. So
I love it. All right. Thank you so much, Andrew. Really appreciate it. Thanks everybody for tuning into the Homegrown Hustle. We got tons more of this coming in. So make sure you like our page, subscribe, hit the little bell on the YouTube, whatever it is, whatever platform you're on. We appreciate all the support, and we'll see you next time. Until then, keep hustling.
Are you dealing with pest or wildlife issues on your property? Call us at 763-328-0156 or scan the QR code to learn more.
Thanks again for joining us on Homegrown Hustle. Our local business community thrives because of the brilliant leaders right here in our backyard. And it's been an absolute privilege to provide them with a platform to share their invaluable expertise. Stay tuned for more insight, wisdom, and inspiration from our local business champions. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Together, we'll continue to nurture and expand our homegrown success stories. Matt Eickman signing off until our next insightful episode.